Hello, everyone, and welcome back to one of the most awesomest panels of right now, Data Innovation Summit 2023, day 2. I think we've all been burning both ends of the wick these days, haven't we? It's been intense, but I think it seems we're all in good spirits. We're here to have a little discussion about the modern data platform blueprint, and I have with me a couple of domain experts on data platforms, components, capabilities, and tools. This is very technology-centric, and it's funny, something that's characterized the talks we've had in the past few days is that I think everybody's said for many years that, it's about people and processes, it's not about the technology, and it's sort of something you toss out there. And I think it's a little bit different this year because it feels like now that the excitement is on LLMs and stuff, the technology is taken for granted, and that's why technology is not important. Whereas before it was because people just didn't understand it, and so they didn't want to talk about it. But the only reason we're here, and the only reason we've ever been here, is because of technology. So to say technology doesn't matter, it doesn't even make sense. We're here because this is a tech conference. Okay, so that being said, I'm joined by 3 experts. Please introduce yourselves, and I'm looking forward to your opinions.
Hi to everybody, I'm Paolo Platter, CTO and co-founder of Agile Lab. And Agile Lab is a consulting company, but since a couple of years we are developing also a product that is going to change the way we see technology, platforms, and so on.
All right, that sounds exciting.
Cool. I'm Alex Dean. I'm one of the 2 co-founders of Snowplow, also the CEO. And Snowplow is 10 years old. We're a data infrastructure business, commercial open source, and we help brands to generate very rich first-party proprietary signal of their own customers on their websites, mobile apps. It's a real-time platform, and then we land the data in Databricks, Snowflake, BigQuery, etc., so that brands can do marketing attribution, digital analytics, next best action, personalization, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, great to be here.
Cool.
Heine, Iversen, founder, CEO of TimeXtender. The short version, we automate everything from connecting to the data source to deliver the data product on any cloud platform.
All right, so we have a gang of heavy hitters here at the table. I'm going to start off with one question. I'm actually going to divide it because there is a follow-up that I think is good here. The audience wants to know what are key capabilities of a modern data platform. I think I'm going to do like this. I'm going to ask for, it doesn't have to be the most important capabilities, but why don't you mention 2 capabilities that you think are standout when it comes to not a data platform, but a modern data platform. Well, so what would characterize a modern data platform if you give me two capabilities that you think are important?
I think right now what is really important is the data engineering experience. So what kind of experience we provide to a data engineer that need to create a use case since the functional requirement to the deployment in production. Because we have so many tools and data engineers have a huge cognitive load because they need to know every tool's documentation, how to code every single components and so on. So we should focus on reduce this kind of cognitive load and creating developer experience that are streamlining the process of creation of value from the data, right?
Developer experience, I like that a lot. I've been talking about why it's worth having a nice laptop. And people are like, why would you want your own computer? You can run in the cloud. And I'm saying it's because it feels good. You can't underestimate the experience of developing and being inspired, feeling efficient and that kind of stuff. So what do you say? What do you think is a defining characteristic?
I'm going to take 2 easy ones. So I'm going to take data sources. So you're going to have some sort of ETL tool. You're going to have something like Snowplow for the data sources. And then everyone here is building some kind of data gravity well. So what do I mean by that? I mean that all these organizations are starting to bring more and more of their data into a central lakehouse or warehouse, like a Databricks or a Snowflake or a BigQuery or a Synapse. You're going to have those 2 pieces. So that was, I think I picked the easy ones.
Okay. What about you?
I think I will take a different approach. I think it's very important that you're future-proof. And I think we should build based on agility. I agree we need to have the developer experience, the data scientist experience is important, but I think we should make sure that whatever future data technology, database, storage that comes up, that we don't have to start all over again.
That's
Because-
awesome. So you're saying a tool that lends itself well to being destroyed, in a sense.
Yes.
I think that's always been a design philosophy that I think is worthwhile, that you design to redesign. You make the tables so that you can remake them, or you make even the platform itself so that you can rebuild it quickly.
And then remove the tedious work.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many wasted hours going on with 10 different tools. We call it the Frankenstack. We're not really a fan of the modern data stack because it's too many tools and it's too much time wasted. So it's the more we can concentrate it, the more we can actually automate so that the data engineer can focus on what's important, the difficult parts, because there's always something that's difficult.
But that's hit on a topic I wanted to bring up, which is interoperability.
Yes.
So, I think it's 2023 now. Data teams are under a lot of pressure.
Yes.
They're under a lot of pressure. Organizations are under pressure. They're under pressure to prove ROI. And I think data vendors, the people in the modern data stack, there was an opportunity to do a lot more interoperability work,
Yes.
like fix the roof while the sun was shining, and that hasn't been done. And so now you've got data teams who are under a lot of pressure from the business to show results, and they're still trying to grapple with all these different tools and having to manually plumb them all together right now. You see all the vendors here, right? Like gluing all that together is tough.
One of the things that I've been wrestling with a couple of my clients has been whether to install something that has everything, or whether to install the pieces piece by piece. Exactly what you're saying. There is a management overhead in managing a stack that is built of 20 components versus the convenience of having an all-in-one data platform. But the negatives of that data platform might be that it's lagging behind in one of those components, whether it's streaming or machine learning or something like that. How do you talk about the trade-offs of having one system that does everything versus being able to design the components piece by piece?
Personally, I'm a big fan of creating an ecosystem of platforms that are synergic, interoperable, and so on, adopting open standards to let tools and platforms communicate. Also because what I've seen on my customer, typically large enterprises, it's not possible to have one single platform because of legacy. So at the beginning of data management history, maybe it was possible to have one single platform, but now the stratification of platforms is not possible anymore to migrate everything on a single platform with all the features inside and so on. So it's simply not feasible. So we need to move towards an ecosystem of platform where interoperability is a key element.
Yeah, I think it comes down to data maturity. So I think if you're starting out, you're just starting to adopt a data warehouse, then there's a great place for technologies like Kibula and Mozart data and kind of do the bundle, right? It's going to save you so much time. I think then, to your point, as you start to reach the limits on one of those pieces and you want to get to the latest in streaming or observability, you're going to have to go outside of that box. And then I think, to your point, as you become more mature still, you're going to need more federated data mesh, very composable architectures.
I tend to disagree.
Go for it.
And the reason is that we have to define what a data platform is, right? And what the data platform is doing. So our approach is to say, okay, we need end-to-end. That means the data mesh, the data fabric. Yes, you can do that. You can do the data lake. You can do it, deploy it across multiple clouds. And I think that's what the developers, the engineers are actually asking for. So will you run into that trade-off? Yes. But I think most of the trade-offs I meet is actually kind of BS out there, because it's the developers who say, yes, but I would like to do something very, very advanced, having that fancy laptop, right? But I think when it comes to data and to solve that pressure from the business, we need to take a step back and say, always look at what are we trying to accomplish. And the goal is not to build a data lake or a data lake house or a data warehouse. The goal is to deliver some intelligence or some data to the business in the absolute fastest way. And sometimes then you can actually do with 80% in a specific area. That is actually good enough to serve the business. But of course, if you try to sit and map out functionality between solutions, no, a specialized solution will always be better than an integrated, right?
I think it's every hot debate in data, or not every, but a lot of them, come back to market segmentation problem. And we see that at Snowplow when we're debating two different strategies, it's normally because we've got two different segments in mind. And so to your point, I totally agree, it is about business outcomes, but like those are going to depend a lot on the size of your company, how far you are through your like cloud journey, how far you are through your warehousing journey. So yeah, I agree with you, but I think, you know, different company sizes need very different things.
Yes, and everything will be a mix, right? You are hybrid, customers are on 3 different clouds with the same data solution, but you can still orchestrate it within one platform.
Sure.
I mean, that's what I see as modern, is that you can cope with all the different underlying technologies, but you put this interface on top.
I guess
for
the
the
question
developers.
was more about technology data platform, not the overall practice, because if we talk about practice, I'm totally agree that a company should be able to employ multiple technology to create a data engineering practice. And inside the data engineering practice, maybe you can have also multiple patterns like data mesh, data lake, and data warehouse, maybe in different areas of the company. Also because of the stratification, again, is not all black or white. But when it comes to technology data platform like Snowflake, Databricks, and so on, I think it's not feasible for a large enterprise to concentrate the entire data landscape in one single technology platform. That was my point.
Yeah, but I don't see that as the data platform. Well, that's why I see the data platform is something more holistic.
Totally with you when I talk about data engineering experience.
Yes,
this
exactly.
is the kind of platform that you need to build in order to enable people to extract value despite the underlying technology.
Snowflake is just a database, right?
There's an issue now. Well, that's the thing, right? Just the database is like Redis or something like that. So like even 12 years ago, you had Cloudera that had everything from data lineage to a million functions. Now granted, they weren't as refined as the tools we have today. The tools we have today are, and even Cloudera itself, I mean, are just leagues beyond. But in principle, it could do lots of things, and people ended up using Hive and Hadoop. And maybe some cool people use Spark. So basically, they used it like a database, and they had this titan of a platform just to do this one thin sliver. So conceptually, I have an issue right now with 2 things. One is enterprises investing in a platform that is enormous to do some thin sliver of work within that platform, and they're putting the cost up front.
Yes.
And now the money starts to burn, and they're like, we have to hurry up and try to find a use case that'll justify the cost of this platform that we've put into production. And then the second thing is, because this is like a monolith, they only really want to focus on, maybe graph analytics or something like that, and then reporting or something like that. And they have all this other stuff that they have 0 skills in, and they need to start skilling up. And I guess my question is 2 things. One is I don't like the idea of spending money ahead of time before you have a reason to justify that cost. And the second one is in terms of sort of the skills. I don't want organizations to be forced to jump from maturity level 1 to 5. They should be allowed to mature 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and justify all of those sort of steps forward.
Yeah, I have a couple of thoughts on that. So I think I take the point, and maybe some of these platforms have a bunch of tooling and features you're not going to need yet on your journey. But I think, we're in a world where the data gravity wells are real. These brands are bringing more and more information into these systems. The siloed kind of systems that had their own data stores are being unbundled, like composable CDP. And so as you get more and more of that data in this central store, you kind of have to have access to all these extra layers of tooling, whether it's stream processing or ML or like SQL or drag and drop UIs, whatever, because you want to do all your use cases there. You want to bring all your algos to the data, and you don't want to have to say, oh, this doesn't work, so I'm going to have to move all of this data out of the gravity well into this other graph system or whatever. So I think it's inevitable that the Snowflakes, the Databricks, the BigQueries are going to have to add all this extra tooling and features around it so that you can do all your use cases there. Because it has to have the feature set for your most difficult future use case. Right. And I think the other point is, yes, we're maybe spending a bit of money up front and storing all that data, building all this, but people said to Snowplow customers over the years, what are you doing storing your event archive? Why are you storing customer behavioral data going back 5 years? that's a liability. And it's like, no one's saying that now with the LLMs. People are thinking, oh, whoa, I could like train against this like full archive of all my customer behavioral data. So my point is you don't know what use cases you're going to want to put live in the next few years because the market is just changing so fast.
But I think we also have there's a flip side to that question, is how many customers actually select Snowflake or Databricks and then they start. So they make the technology decision first. I mean it so many times. And when you
I would say like
them,
almost the majority,
yes,
right?
when you challenge them, okay, so does it have to be Snowflake? Yes. We support Snowflake, Databricks, Synapse, everything. And Synapse, Microsoft Azure, they have a lot of those tools around. But I would say most of what people are building also on Synapse, also very, very large enterprises, they build a classic data warehouse, Kimball structure, defined model, and then they put Power BI and Click and Tableau on top of it. I mean, that is still 90% of what they use it for. And I think for that, unless you have a stream, I talked to a telecom company yesterday with 100 billion of records a year. Okay, you might need this performance, but 90% of what is being used out there can still be used just on plain SQL.
Yeah.
SQL running with cloud hardware can easily deliver the performance you need, right? So there needs to be something that will help them with these use cases. I don't know, maybe LLM, yes, can be that use case.
What's your take on this monolith ahead of time versus implementing single tools and then having to deal with the ecosystem? Because undeniably there's a management reduction in buying one of these shrink-wrapped platforms, so to speak.
Obviously, building an ecosystem is requiring more investments in a short time because...
Is it though? Because like, if you just build this one component, you're not paying for everything else around it.
The integration among multiple components...
Like the technical debt builds up, maybe.
It's some way costly. So if you made a very good example, no? You buy Cloudera, you have a lot of components that are separate components, not independent components, let's say, but they are talking each other in a very good way. Same identity provider, same way for managing access control. So everything is uniform, okay? So you don't need to take care of this. If you start to build an ecosystem, instead you need to take care as platform team of creating such practices on top, like governance, access control, and whatever. So in the short time, it's costing more, but I guess in the long term, it's providing huge benefits because you gain the flexibility and the ability to innovate. Because if in 2 years, 3 years, new technology will pop up and will come in place, we will have the possibility to integrate new piece, maybe step by step, evolving the technology stack along the time. A lot of people that maybe invested heavily in Cloudera, and now Cloudera is falling behind a bit, let's say. If they want to move out, they have difficulties because Cloudera is not interoperable with the rest of the ecosystem. You need to move the data from one place to another. So in the long term, this is not enabling innovation, and it's a huge debt for a large company.
I think that's right. I think that to the interoperability point, I think we all should have done more work on open standards over the last few years, and I think there's good lower level standards like schema technologies and storage formats on Blob and stuff like that, but I feel like there's almost a missing layer of standards one level higher that could have driven the interoperability. So there's a lot of different data observability tools here today.
Yeah.
I haven't seen them kind of working together to create open standards for vendors like us to plug into.
They don't work together.
No.
The only, let's say, effort in this direction to me is delta sharing that is coming from Databricks. It seems very coupled with Delta Lake, but in reality they built a protocol. It's an open one, but we need to create adoption. So multiple, many technologies should adopt this open standard in order to.
There's
create
many
this
layers at which it can fail the interoperability. I mean, if you consider Google Bigtable,
Right.
there's not almost even a format, but have you ever tried to extract tens of dozens of terabytes from Google? It's basically impossible.
Right.
Basically impossible. And then you have the technical hurdles, like the serialization formats and whatever.
Yeah.
That's another thing. And then finally, you have just the sheer volume of data.
Yeah.
Fact is, if you have a petabyte of data anywhere, doesn't matter how interoperable it is, it might as well just it's going to stay there.
Yeah, that's the data gravity point.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that is undeniable. And to that effect, I 100% agree with you with that. The effort of moving stuff will sort of make things gravitate to these different ecosystems. However, I did hear an interesting comment earlier at another panel of a guy that said that the data is going to grow stale. Not in a bad way, but in the sense that it's okay that it stays there because as that well grows, we make a new one and it's sort of more relevant and newer and good data, and this one will eventually sort of evaporate in a sense. And so it doesn't have to be a problem. What do you think about that?
I think that's an interesting one.
You shouldn't just build on one forever. You should have new ones that you keep building.
Yeah, I think there's so I think there's two separate points. There's almost staleness, and then there's like, is it kind of future-proof? And so I think as long as you're serializing and storing it using good standards and schematizing it and structuring the data, then I think you can use it in perpetuity. Is it stale? Yeah, it could be. I mean, if you're like a very high transactional business and you only serve a certain cohort and people age out of it, then I guess by definition it's stale. But like, is anything stale in the age of like generative AIs and wanting to train LLMs? Like, they would love that data on like historical consumer behavior.
Maybe. We'll see.
We'll see.
I think we're going to be really creative when it comes to that kind of stuff because everybody, man, this was like a big myth about deep learning, that deep learning needs lots of data.
Yeah.
Just as a data structure, deep learning needs fewer samples than tree structures and stuff. So that's like wrong on a technical level. But I have a feeling that we're going to be able to use reinforcement techniques for models to oversee their own training and tag. So it's easier to be a discriminator than it is to actually produce a good output. So we might be able to have models that can pretend to be customers and have another model that's trying to serve relevant content, and the discriminator can say, nah, it's not interesting. And so we might not even have to have historical data if we can have a discriminator that's fairly customer-like and that kind of stuff.
No, but you need to know where they are, right? And that's why again, I believe that you need to have this, you call it blueprint, also in the thesis for this discussion. I think you need a platform that can give you the blueprint of what is my data sources, where is all my data storage.
Let's talk about blueprints, because blueprints embed best practice, or do they not? What do you think about that?
They go hand in hand completely. Because what you get from a blueprint, if you take the philosophy and say to design and build your entire data infrastructure, you just draw the blueprint. Forget about technology. We started with that in the beginning, right? If what we do, this is my data sources, this is what I want to happen, this is where the amount of data lakes or warehouses I want, data products for data mesh, and this is the underlying platforms or data structures I want to store it on. And by the way, this is just a virtual one over here, but if you put it all into one blueprint, you have all the metadata.
Yeah.
And the future, and the key for the future is metadata, right? Because with growing number of data sources, growing number of data, we need to understand that the business needs to understand to generate the use cases, what data is available, where is it? We also need to have, compliance, security, all that stuff. But if you can just do the blueprint, then you also become future-proof. Because then you have not made a decision that this is the tool I want to use, this needs to be on Snowflake. Yes, today, maybe I would move it. We have customers that take a solution that are running on SQL or Synapse and click 10 minutes later, okay, now everything is redesigned on Snowflake, right? Of course, then they need to make that decision. Do I want to move my old data from my Azure data lake, or will I leave it there and then continue? But then my data product needs to know this, so that my data product can then potentially be fed from both. That's how I define the future of data management.
This is a super interesting, and I think is related to the developer experience, because you can achieve that kind of control if you wire the metadata gathering in the development journey.
Yes.
Because there is a huge difference in providing technology as a service, but then after that you provide the technology, you don't know what is happening, and instead providing developer experience as a service where you have control on the experience because you have a platform team that is in some way providing such experience. And for example, there is a pattern that we advise that is the governance shift left. So pushing the governance duties into the development lifecycle. So developers need to provide metadata when they develop the use case. And we can assess in the CI/CD if the metadata is fulfilled, is completed, is compliant with the glossary and whatever before the data is going in production. Yeah. So to me, this is providing a developer experience and wiring in the process of value creation.
How big team do we need? I'm just wondering here, to do that with the stack and generate all these practices. How big is a data team? How many people do you need to be able to do that
in my
approach?
Experience, the platform team, so who is developing such experience and integrating under the hood everything, it's 4 or 5 people, no more.
Yeah.
But this can generate huge benefits if you have 100 data engineers across the company.
I totally agree. I think there's 2 sets of shift left.
Oh, this is a great discussion. I want to talk about the developer experience because traditionally it's been abysmal. Everybody talks about data and it's almost like it automates itself and the developers just sort of there to look at it. But the experience of collaborating with developers, setting up tests, setting up the business rules and stuff has been really abysmal up until now. But right, so keep going. We'll pin that because it's related.
Yeah, no, it's all the same topic, I think. So I think there's multiple shift lefts. So I think the shift left in terms of building these data products, you're exactly right. We have to have all the metadata, the understanding of the product baked into CI/CD, make sure they're really they're proper engineered products, right? Yeah. There's another piece of shift left, which is something we're working on at Snowplow, which is we've got to attach the metadata, we've got to do the structuring at the point of data creation, which is what we do at Snowplow. So we're building a lot of tooling so that when you send data into Snowplow, you're attaching schemas, you're attaching data structures. And that means that's shift left because it means that metadata is flowing through the whole system and you have that lineage. So, and we're baking CI/CD in as well. So I think as an industry, we're moving away from kind of ad hoc, let's write some SQL here and there, and let's bake shift left thinking, CI/CD processes and practices into the whole thing, because otherwise it's just ungovernable.
Let me tie this into the thing that I was thinking about.
That's because you want to do it like software development. I completely disagree that data products and data processes should be seen as a software development process.
Tell me, how should it be seen instead?
But I think if you look at from the modern data platform, I think where we are going also with LLM, I would say that it's much more about modeling. The data modeling with metadata will become the key thing because computers will generate all the SQL scripts. Most of what the data engineer are doing today when it comes to writing code and managing all that will be taken over by LLM models in the next week or 5 years. We don't know. But if you look into where the future is, so that we don't need 100, from my perspective, data engineers. We need a way to make sure that we can model and control, and that means that data quality and fixing data quality issues, metadata, documentation, becomes a much more integrated part, so that we will end up developing based on metadata.
Let me tell you, look, when I'm thrown into a project where capabilities are already set up, they say we have a data platform in place, it's capable of doing lots of things, which it is, in principle at least, and I'm thrown in as a developer, the first thing I say is, where am I allowed to put the data? Okay, we need to add you to an AD group. Right. Can't even get started on my work. Yeah. That is part of the developer experience. And it doesn't even have anything to do with the developer platform. Okay, cool. You have write access, you don't have read access. Okay, you know what I'm saying? So it's not even about how complex or not complex it is to set up CI/CD rules and all that kind of stuff. And I sort of agree with you. I think that given like a very structured API or whatever, machines should be able to do that stuff. But the process of me actually getting to use the system, getting my data there, evaluating whether I can do, I want to try out my little graph experiment and that kind of stuff. That is super hard still for some reason, because it requires 20 people to manage and set up the access controls and everything else like that. So I feel like the platforms are good as is, and right now we don't have processes, which is why I come back to the blueprints that I was talking about before. Can they sort of force people to work in a way that makes this pain of getting things going on these platforms that can do so many things minimal? And so I thought it was really awesome that you guys said that you only need 4 people. And we've seen examples of big CEOs this year kicking off 80% of their staff, and we're like, it doesn't run as well. Yeah, but he's running it on 20% of the people that used to be there, the same technical platform. Let's talk for a second about what you actually need to get started and be effective with these platforms. What kind of skills and capabilities or team sizes and that kind of stuff? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think I want to answer that, but I also want to go back to your point, because I think they're both interesting. I think so. I think to get started, we've all lent on these kinds of generalists. A bit of data engineering, a bit of analytics engineering. They know enough SQL to be dangerous. Maybe they can build a couple of streaming jobs or whatever. I think to your point, I think it's interesting to think that. So I was talking to an agency partner the other day, and they write a huge amount of SQL. They use a lot of DBT. And they've started using ChatGPT, and they said it's pretty good, and they're going to use it more and more. And so I think what's going to happen is getting started, like that generalist data techie, data MacGyver we call them sometimes at Snowplow, will be able to use ChatGPT to do a lot more faster. I think in larger companies, I think you're right. I think a lot of the kind of human middleware it's sometimes been described as, we still need those great engineers, those generalists, but I think they're going to be pulled to the first mile and the last mile. So what do I mean by that? The first mile means they're going to work to structure the data better for the LLMs, because obviously AIs are going to do better if the data has better metadata.
Yes.
So they're going to work first mile, and then they're going to work last mile doing the creative use cases, piloting, building, personalization engines,
so
or whatever is
value.
cool. Adding value, business value.
Business value, exactly.
Yeah.
Because that's what we need to get to, so it get away from that technology discussion, right?
Yeah.
Right. And so how does this play into my question about team sizes in short term and long in 5 years, where we are now and what we should aim for? I think a lot of companies think, man, at some of my companies, you have teams that are hundreds of people managing a system like Databricks or whatever that in principle almost should manage itself, I think. Are these systems so complex that they need that many people?
No.
Or if they do, what should they be focusing on?
I think it really comes down to, because if you take the approach, which is a viable approach, to say, okay, but we want to build that for innovation, we're going to stitch together all these tools. And then we see Databricks as our underlying engine, or Snowflake is our engine, but we need, tools like DBT, we need tools like Fivetran, we try to put all this together. And I think that is one approach, and you will roughly need the same people as you do today. I believe that automation will go to a completely different level, so that we will see much more of these more holistic orchestration platforms, like TimeXtender, what we are doing, saying that, yes, but just tell me what data sources you want your data from, and where do you want to go, where should we put it, so the first mile, and then put some more metadata on, and you're done, because then technology will take over the rest. We will just, build that data lake for you, or put it into Databricks.
You need to build such kind of experience anyway.
But you don't need as many people. And I can see a lot of the customers that we win that comes from the stack. No, they go from 25 people in the data team to 4, taking care of both the first mile, last mile, and everything in between, right? That doesn't mean that these people are getting fired. It means that they can actually be utilized in new use cases that was piling up, but nobody had resources to do.
But I think that's an interesting point, because I think that as the data teams get freed up to do more business performance work and build more, last mile use cases, I think we're going to see a lot of disruption of industries that aren't here today. So I think we're going to see a lot of unbundling of other tools, and there's a term I really like called inverse Conway's law, which is, Conway's law is like, you ship the software that per the structure of your company. Inverse Conway's law is the idea that your company has to change and adapt to the packaged tools it's buying. And so I think as our data platforms get more sophisticated, as we get more and more data in these data gravity wells, we're going to start saying, to your CRM provider or your customer engagement provider, no, we're going to unbundle you and we're going to build this on top of the data lake or the data warehouse using our own data team that have been freed up because they're not having to do this kind of plumbing work in the middle anymore.
That's an interesting idea, yeah.
Well, I think to your point about having 4 people in the team, and also you as well, is if you're pushing people out into the teams so that the stewards of data and the stewards of the data product and the AI product and stuff are part of the teams that actually get the value of it, it doesn't make sense to have them in like a gigantic monolithic IT group, right?
Yep.
So and that's a stronger evidence of what you guys are saying, that to manage the actual infrastructure as such, if we separate out all this sort of logical IT, it doesn't require a huge team necessarily, right?
And more important, if you can concentrate a team that is only working on platform engineering, let's say, this has the huge benefit that can be managed as a product itself. So it's not working project by project. Oh, please place the ACL on this table. Oh, please open the ticket to do this and so on. So the platform team should work as a product team, and it can have a direct impact also in terms of return of investment, because if investing a certain amount of time, you are able to save 1 hour per week on hundreds of data engineers, you are generating a direct impact on the company. So instead,
who should be doing that work? That the ACL tickets and that kind of stuff. Where should that land?
What do you mean? Sorry.
Well, doing like access control and then that kind of.
You need to automate it. Inside
self-service or
some service where this could be totally self-service, and this is part of the developer experience, because when I want to develop a use case, I don't want to call someone and wait for an approval and so on. I want some automatic process that is delivering and helping me to unlock the next stage of my process. No?
But this would break down silos, which means that the IT group doesn't get to control that stuff anymore.
Exactly.
And I think that's right. Like at this conference last year, data mesh was a really big hot topic, and now everyone's talking about LLMs and generative AI. But I think the challenges haven't gone away, and the silos, I think, is still an issue. And I think as these data teams, these like central, capital D data teams are under more pressure to show results, I think you're right. I think we're going to see an unbundling where it's like we keep a platform team that work on all these difficult problems, and then I think the rest of the data team is going to get moved out and embedded into the line of businesses that are trying to genuinely use data to increase conversions, reduce costs, improve return on ad spend, decrease churn, all the stuff that we're all ultimately here to do, but we kind of sometimes forget about in the
What do you think the data team should be spending time making sure that data doesn't have personally identifiable information and that it's compliant, or is that sort of something that business units should be doing?
But I think you need to have it. It's a collaboration.
Yeah.
You cannot give it to the business alone, because there will be some data-related stuff that they don't know, and the data team doesn't know the business rules.
100%.
So what you need to do, again, is you need to do 2 things. You need to make a combined environment that they can work in, so that they actually work together, so it's not in different tools, but we're working together.
How far out can you push, though, when it comes to data literacy? Because obviously they won't know this data stuff, but how much should they know?
I think you can push it along if you incorporate a ton of automation into it, right? Because, again, fixing data quality issues, making sure you're compliant, like could be GDPR, PII information. I will say that with LLM models built into your stack or into our product, we will be able to spot 99.9% of this. We already have built in so that the data team can actually just mark, based on the documentation they get from the GDPR part, they can just mark what data in the data lake and data lake that is PII. And because it's one combined metadata solution with data lineage, you can actually then, that information flows automatically into the warehouse, into the data products, so that you are in complete control, and then the business can validate it. Oh, is this right, or the DPO, or whatever, depending again on how you're set up. But it all comes down to what we can do with metadata and automation, because that is going to be amazing.
Right. All right, so we have 1 minute left. I want to hear 20 seconds from each of you. What's the next big thing in data platforms? Go.
To me, the next big thing is platform engineering applied to the data ecosystem. So moving from single data platforms to ecosystem of platforms where we build experiences for data engineers. So for people, I identify data engineers not with people doing just the ETL, but with people that are engineerizing data to extract value. So the full life cycle for me is data engineering. So I see this platform engineering focusing on creating developer experience for data engineers, including generation of suggestion and support.
I love the developer experience focus. I think that's a big one. What do you guys say?
I'm going to steal AI-driven data modeling. I agree with you. I think that AIs are just going to start doing the middle piece.
I think
90% of the work we are doing today will be fully automated.
I think people think that this is something that's going to happen in 2 to 3 years. I think it's going to happen sooner than that. This is going to go really fast.
Based on what that agency was saying to me, it's happening now.
Yes.
That's awesome.
It is.
That's a great panel. We've chatted here for 45 minutes and it went pretty fast. Very happy. Thank you all for your insights. I hope you guys were inspired. Thank you for joining us. And stick around. We're going to have a little bit of lunch break now, I think. But we'll be back with some more exciting sessions. See you soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye-bye.